What's up, guys? Luke Johns here from Fisherman's Warehouse. We are back finally with another episode of the Fishing Report here. In studio with me today, we've got Austin Wilson, of course, familiar face around here from the Sacramento store. So I heard we've got a lot going on in the fishing world right now. I mean, everything from steelhead to striper to tuna to bass to rockfish, crab, everything under the sun is going on right now. So anyways, I know you've had some experience out at the Delta and a few other places recently, so let's jump straight into it.
So we'll start off with the Delta. Delta's been fishing pretty good. You know, the bass fishing's been good. It's fall time. These fish are bulking up for the winter. So the punch bite's been really good. The top water is not really good in the morning because the mornings are still pretty cold. But in the afternoon, when that water temp warms up a little bit, those fish start to chew top water. A frog, walking style bait. I don't really throw like a whopper plopper or a buzz bait this time of year because I want something almost sitting and still, a little bit slower. A poppers are another really good bait, just because the water temps are cooling down, and those fish kind of get a little bit more lethargic. They are getting, they are hungry. Obviously they want to bulk up, but I want something in place a little bit longer to get them get a really good look at that bait. And then the striper fishing. Striper fishing has been great. I've heard that Rio Vista area, Liberty area, Sherman, Big Break. Has been catching some really nice fish and a lot of fish. Guys are catching them trolling, throwing topwater, throwing swim baits, and just finding, you have to bounce around quite a bit until you find it, but once you find it, you can really catch a lot of fish. So, and, you can run into a big one, but a lot of times they're going to be your schoolie size fish, your 4 to, 8 to 10 pound class range. There are some 30 and 40 pounders out there, so you never know when you make that cast, you can run into one of those big ones. But yeah, the Delta's fishing pretty good.
That's awesome. Yeah. Speaking of striper fishing, if anybody's near Lake Mojave, I got on some striper boils there while I was down there. Well, actually, I didn't catch any of them, but my roommates did. We had striper one of the nights because they absolutely smoked them. I mean, I saw the videos they were posting. It was literally like shooting a shotgun shell into the water. I mean, there were so many stripers just like blowing up everywhere. So
I heard there's some big ones there too, giants.
Yeah, so they were catching the kind of more cookie cutter 7 to 9 pounders, which still good fish. But I did hear about some guys catching some of those 20 to 30 pounders. But I guess those guys are trolling them deeper, so not the ones that are schooling up and busting the shad on the surface stuff.
So if you're in that area, which is like what, a 10-hour drive from
or if you want to take a 10-hour drive, just go catch a couple nice striper boils, it's worth it. Totally.
Yeah.
But anyways, moving on from that, I mean, I know, like we talked about, I guess moving on from striper, you got anything left on that, or is that anything further up in the rivers?
They are catching some stripers, up in the river, steelhead fishing, there are some steelhead being caught. There are the smaller grade fish, your Coleman hatchery size at like 1.5 pounds to about 4 to 5 pounds. Get some more rain here, some bigger fish are going to show up. Your winter run, the American gets the bigger fish than a lot of the other rivers. Like we have the Eel River strain, they get from 6 to 10, 10 plus. They get pretty big on the American. I know last year or 2 years ago I talked to the hatchery, and they said they had one that was pushing 24 pounds. So they do get giant on the American, which the feather and the sack, you get a lot of 3 to 5, 6 pounders. Don't get wrong, you can catch some big ones there, but they seem to be a little bit smaller. Just be careful. I know salmon season is closed. If you're out there steelhead fishing, you don't want to be catching any salmon. So just be careful out there. But there are still to be caught, and there's quite a few of them in the river. So you get a little bit more rain, some more fish are going to show up. So looking forward to steelhead season this year. I'll be out there a bunch.
Nice. So. And I believe a couple of weeks ago we had shot a video with you on your steelhead setup. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you guys are looking on how to catch some steelhead, make sure you check that video out. So we've got steelhead, striper, a little bit of bass fishing in the Delta. So I guess I'll roll over to Folsom real quick for just a minute. And I can talk a little bit about Mojave too, I guess, because why not? I was just there. So I'll start with that one, actually. So I just got back about a week ago from the U.S. Open down at Mojave. It was a super fun event, the first time I ever fished with Juan Bass, so they run some great tournaments. So if you guys are looking to get into some of those, I know they got a good schedule next year. And they're including us and the Northern California guys next year a little bit more. We got Shasta and Clear Lake. So those two should be fun events. But anyways, I went down to Lake Mojave, so I spent about, I don't know, I think 5 or 6 days on the water there. I had some boat troubles multiple times actually, but anyways, got to do some really fun smallmouth fishing. That lake is phenomenal. We had water temps around the 70-degree mark, and what they were doing that time of the year is they were actually dropping the water for some sort of natural fish that spawns in that lake. It's only native to that lake. So anyways, we had a lot of changing conditions throughout the week, so those fish were constantly moving. You had to keep on your toes, constantly be moving around trying to find these fish because they, were not sitting in one spot for very long, it seemed like. So during that week, I really focused on just a couple, or really only one technique, and that I just threw drop shot the entire week. Shocker that I was throwing a drop shot, but, you got 20 foot of visibility. You're going to need some light line, so I was throwing some 7-pound line and just throwing a drop shot with one of those new Yamamoto scope shads, neat little drop shot bait. And the biggest thing for me was the forward-facing sonar. I know everybody's up in arms on it, whether you're on one side of the spectrum or the other, but the fact is, if you're not using it in a tournament setting, then you kind of are behind the 8 ball.
100%.
Which, it's part of the game now, and you got to get used to it. So I'm not the best at it, so I had a big learning experience this week. It was really fun throwing onto some of those fish, and it is fun watching them eat it. Of course, it's an expensive unit, but it really does help you put a couple more fish in the boat. But, of course, you can catch those fish however you want. You don't have to have the forward-facing sonar to get on the same fish that I was catching. But congratulations to Kyle Grover for winning that tournament. That was a huge milestone. I know every guy on the West Coast who's a bass fisherman wants to win that tournament, so kudos to him. He really deserved it. He kicked
100%.
everybody's butt all week, so lead wire to wire. You really can't, you can't say anything about it. So congratulations.
Congrats.
And moving on from that, going into Folsom, we're starting to get in that fall time. I really like fishing the fall time out there. During the summertime, a lot of those fish, move offshore. You'll find them real grouped up on certain areas, and they get really finicky due to the, if you get some really hot weather, and the boat traffic out there is always just nuts during the summer. So going into the fall time, we get a little bit more, quieter days out there with less boat traffic, and those fish start to really chase and start to eat stuff. So it's going to be really fun, next couple of months going into the winter. So some of the things that I really like to do during, this time of the year, I really like throwing a glide bait out there. You're going to be able to pick up your A-rig, you're going to be able to pick up a swim bait, and then, of course, you can do your traditional, more finesse stuff. If you want to pick up a football head and still beat up some of those rock piles, that's always a great way to catch them.
There's a lot of rock piles out in that lake.
There's a lot of rock piles, and the great thing this year is we actually have some water left.
A lot of water. You can still run around. It's not 5 mile an hour yet.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're good.
Exactly. So, and like you were saying with the topwater bite, I know we're kind of getting to the very tail end of it, but that is one thing, like you were saying, a lot of the guys forget about that. It's not going to be the early morning because those fish don't want to chase first thing in the morning that shallow. But
it's cold.
It's too cold. It's too cold for them. But when that summer, when that late sun gets up and just heats up that water, those fish will rise up, sun themselves, and if you put something right on top of their head, they'll come up and eat it. And a lot of the times you're not going to be getting a lot of bites, but if you do get a bite, you're going to be getting the right one. Yeah, definitely. So anyways, there's a lot of stuff you could be doing at Folsom right now. It should open up. Those fish should get a lot more active, a bit shallower, and you can kind of just catch them on basically whatever you want. Rip bait, along with all the other things I mentioned. So moving on from that, I know
I think we're going to talk about Berryessa.
Berryessa. Okay, roll into that.
So it's another lake that has, grass. It's, you go to the north end, it's shallower. You can go offshore. There's island tops. A spoon this time of year is one of the a key bait to catching a lot of fish and some really good numbers. I'm not a really guy that likes to go out deep. I like to fish shallow. I'm the guy that doesn't really use graphs. I'm not hating on, forward facing, but if you're not using it, you are behind 100%. And so I feel like I am behind a little bit. So I'm going to fish shallow. I'm going to throw most of the time, this time of year, I'm going to throw LV 500, and I'm going to cover a lot of water, trying to find healthy grass, fishing the edge of the grass lines, and trying to find the schooling fish that are pushing bait in the back of pockets, or they're just on a grass line, using the grass line as a barrier to push the bait fish against it. So, and obviously the bluegill, the crappie, the smaller juvenile crappie and bluegill are going to live in that grass until it dies off. So, throwing the LV, ripping it through that stuff, and trying to get those fish to react. And whenever you're dealing with grass, I feel like you're going to run into some bigger largemouth. That's just where I think they live. Don't get me wrong, they do live out deep. They chase trout. They eat, stuff out deep too. But I like to fish the shallow stuff. But spooning, trap, you can throw top water in the afternoon. You can drag a jig around if you want to. You can throw a drop shot. But the 2 baits I would have tied on right now if I went to Berryessa would be a spoon. If I couldn't get him out, couldn't get him shallow, and I would throw an LB 500 and just cover a lot of water. Colors wise, ghosty colors, any shad ghosty colors, what I would use. But that's kind of it on Berryessa. And then I guess Clear Lake would be our last place to really talk about. I don't have any other lakes I really want to talk about. Any other place I really have any information that I've got from people coming in the store. But yeah, so Clear Lake, it's been fishing good like all year long. I didn't hear there wasn't much of a frog bite there this year, but going into the fall, the LV 500, chatterbait, your glide bait, your underspin, Kitech on an underspin, trash fish works really good, which I wish we can get those in. The Fisherman's, maybe try to get
maybe. I've talked to him a little bit, so hopefully it works out.
Good. Huddleston works really well. Getting around some of the deep rock and just creeping on the bottom. You can catch some really good ones. But yeah, what I've heard, usually the fall transition, it kind of slows down to where you can't really catch them. I heard it's been good. I've been watching some of the tournament results, and the weights have been high still. They do fall off towards the lower end, but that's just how every tournament goes. But usually this time of year, it takes like 18, 19 pounds to win. It's taking like mid 20s to win the tournament. So I'm thinking this fall when those fish actually get in their wintertime areas where you can throw a swim bait, you can catch some giants. This year. So
yeah, I think it's going to be very similar to what we saw last year in spring, where it just blew wide open.
Wide open. I think this next spring is going to be phenomenal.
Yeah. So hopefully we get a lot of rain again this year. That water stays high. Because that would be amazing.
Yeah.
That's the same thing with. It seemed like almost every place except for the Delta just got better this year.
Yeah.
And
then I have one more thing I want to add that we didn't talk about is tuna fishing. They have been
nice
catching.
Little trip, huh?
I went tuna fishing down in SoCal. Caught a lot of fish. It was a blast. But for Northern California, they've been catching a few. I've been seeing a lot of pictures, a lot of videos on social media, and them catching them. Half Moon Bay, going underneath the gate, bodega. There were some big eyes caught up at Fort Bragg, and a lot of times those guys are just using them. They're just trolling the Mad Max at like 14 miles an hour, using the big rods and big line, and they're catching anywhere from 100 to 200 pound fish. So it's crazy to me. I can't imagine after going to SoCal and catching like a 40 to 50 pounder. I can't imagine hooking one over 100. Like it'd be crazy to hook one. But anyway, that's kind of it. I know they're catching them pretty good out there. I don't know when it's going to come to an end. We are at the tail end of that season, so I would get out there soon before it you have to wait until next year. So
yep, exactly. Get on it before it's gone. So and then. I guess what else? I guess
That's
we got a little bit of crab, rockfish,
all crab.
that
I stuff.
forgot
all about crab.
Come on.
Crab season does open here pretty soon. So make sure you stock up on your snares, your pots, your all the necessities that you need for your crab stuff. So crabbing's pretty fun. You can go out and drop your pots, and then you check them at the end of the day, and you have all these giant crab, and obviously a lot of small ones too. You throw those back, but yeah, and it's fun. You get out there with your family and friends and have a good time.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I think needless to say, you've got plenty of options to go fishing right now, whether you're looking for bass, striper, steelhead, crab, tuna. The list goes on. So if you guys are in the market for anything under the sun fishing, of course, we've got it here at Fisherman's Warehouse. And if you're visiting one of our in-store locations, we've got Sacramento, Fairfield, Manteca, and a new one on the way.
On the
way, not quite open yet. But, of course, if you're in Sacramento, make sure you say hi to Austin. And, of course, say hi to anybody at any of our stores. They will be sure to get you hooked up with whatever you need. So we look forward to seeing you guys out on the water. Good luck, and we'll catch you in the next episode.